Retail is tough, and we are seeing many independent bricks and mortar businesses closing. But I am here today to chat with Deryane, founder of The Dressing Room, which is a business that is celebrating 20 years this year. Deryane, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure.
You're celebrating 20 years. That is a real testament to what you've obviously been doing, how you've changing because retail has changed so much, and how you're moving with your customer and what you're doing. But before we get into that, can you tell the listeners a little bit about the dressing room and about you and why and how you started the business?
So I left school at 16, kind of didn't have a particular sort of vision of what I was going to do. I went traveling for a bit. And then kind of thought I better get a job. And then I thought, oh, actually working in a shop looks like good fun. I'll do that. So I started working in retail, loved it, found I was actually good at it and got promoted quite quickly. So worked across the high street for various different companies like Knickerbox back in the day, Warehouse, and then started working for a franchise of French Connection back in 1997. And it was a startup of the franchise. So over 7 years, I started as a store manager and then quickly progressed to area manager and then buying and operations director for the business. And we were there for 7 years. We opened 5 stores in the southeast. I absolutely loved it. I learned so much from my boss at the time. And then he wanted to retire. So he sold the business back to French Connection. And that was in 2004. And I was at a bit of a crossroads then because I treated that business like it was my own. I absolutely loved it. I lived and breathed what I did. So I kind of didn't really want to then go and work for a big corporation again. I wanted to do my own thing. And I love fashion, always have done, loved retail, and really wanted to bring together full kind of service for people. So I wanted to bring together lots of niche brands to some well-known brands and bring it together in a really friendly environment with great knowledgeable staff. So I came up with the vision for the dressing room then. I wasn't sure where I was going to open. My business is based in St Albans, but I didn't grow up in St Albans. I was kind of thinking of starting in any kind of affluent commuter belt areas, I would say. So I was looking at Windsor, Marlow, Henley, St Albans, and kind of we'd had good success with French Connection in St Albans, and we'd also had really good success in Windsor. So they were key areas for me, but I was quite obsessed with Marlow for a little while. But then the unit came along eventually in St Albans, and that's where I started the business. And it just it's gone from strength to strength. Really, we've evolved quite a lot since then, or hugely since then.
And in terms of that funding then at the start of the business, was that something you self-funded or did you have to go and find investment?
Had to find funding. It was very, very difficult. I mean, that was one of the key challenges, I would say. What I really found, it was a big learning curve for me. I suppose when I was working at French Connection with my boss, I would attend a lot of these meetings, these financial meetings, all of this, and you were treated with such respect and everything. And I was there with, a much older gentleman who was well respected. And I was very well respected within what I was doing. But when I started trying to find those premises for myself, I was 32 at the time. Gosh, I came across a lot of difficulty. I really wasn't taken seriously. And I had a solid business plan. I had a really amazing drawings for shop fits. I'd gone to town on everything and trying to secure premises and trying to secure funding was very, very difficult. And I really did come across quite a lot of misogyny, I suppose, then. But I put some money in myself. And then I eventually got a bank loan and for £70,000, which I put my house up against, had to sort of sign everything away, speak to my husband. If this goes wrong, we lose everything. So it was, and for me, it's, this is a proper real business. It needs to work. It needs to earn money. It's, it's the driving force for what I do. And I think it could never be just a hobby that you could just walk away from.
And have you had to get funding since an investment? Because I want to kind of like, has it changed? Are you still meeting that resistance
It's definitely changed now. The business has kind of evolved hugely. So when I started, I set up in a very small store, 500 square foot, secondary location in St Albans. I knew that I just needed to get my foot in the door. I just needed to get my first premises. So I did that. After 18 months, I found a new premises in St Albans. So I was in the process of securing a second unit in Marlow, actually, a second small unit. But I'd kind of, I knew I could do a lot more business in St Albans if I was in a more primary location, if I had a bigger unit. I mean, thinking back, this is 2005, so online wasn't a big thing at that
Yeah,
time. So I needed that bigger premises. I needed it for myself because I knew that I could do so much
the
more.
potential.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And we were driving, myself and my husband were driving through St Albans one day, and we passed this big unit, which was a menswear outfitters at the time called Andrews. And I just kind of said to my husband, "Oh, if only they could retire, then that would be the fantastic, that would be the best unit." And then about a week later, I had a phone call from the property agent that was negotiating on
I know.
Marlow for me, and he said, "I know you're looking for somewhere bigger in St Albans. There is somewhere, but it's too big and it's too expensive. You're going to say no." And I was like, what unit is it? And he said, "It's the Andrews unit." And I was like, "Oh, we have to make this happen." And he said, Gap are actually in the process of signing for it. So we're going to have to move quickly. And I thought, I don't stand a hope in hell of getting this. But actually, I had a meeting then with the landlord was, the owner of the business as well. So he was running a menswear independent. And he said that I walked in with such purpose that he just knew that it had to go to me. So that's quite a nice story in a sense. So I suppose getting back to your question that you asked a while ago, I have expanded the business quite dramatically over the years. So I have had to take more funding. So for that move, obviously, I needed more funding. I had to get another bank loan. And then we did a shop fit back in 2015, I think it was. So again, I needed some funding for that. So each time I have had to kind of, secure my home against that, which is, isn't easy, but I'm confident in what I do, so I know
Yeah.
that it will work.
And I mean, obviously you're much more experienced and you've got a lot of history now behind you, but do you still meet the same resistance? Because I'm hearing a lot from people, from female founders particularly, that it's such a slog getting that investment. Did you find it
Yeah.
still a slog even though you've got that you've got such history behind you?
I think in the early days, definitely. I think as the business has evolved and I've got the numbers there to prove the success, I think less so, I would say. Back in 2019, we had the opportunity to buy the freehold for the building from the landlord. So that was a very big moment. Obviously was big funding again to get that, so a big sort of business mortgage for that. So that was tricky, but whether that was tricky because I was a female or whether that was just tricky because it was a big ask, I don't know. I would say I felt more respected within those
Yeah.
meetings in sort of recent years.
When you were starting out in that early part of your journey, were the bigger challenges that for you at that time?
I think definitely securing premises and securing funding were huge. I was being offered funding from people at really ridiculous kind of rates with silly kind of terms. People telling me where I could open, and I was like, that's not the right place for me. All the terms were wrong. So I think the funding was very difficult, securing premises, and then I think cash flow in those early days is very, very difficult. I mean, it's difficult even when you get to be an established business. But I think cash flow is definitely something in the early days of a business that is a struggle, because a lot of the time people want goods paid for up front because you don't have a history. So you need to make sure that any funding that you do have kind of can cover those first 6 months to a year of kind of getting that product in as well.
Yeah. And how have you seen your customer, have you seen their needs and wants change over the period of time that you've been trading?
I think a lot. And I think there's two elements as well here. So I think I've got that long-term customer who's been with me kind of since day one, all those early days, and she's kind of grown with the business. And then it's important for me to keep that younger customer coming through as well. So I think it's about making sure that the product mix is right for both of those people, so that the younger customer is coming through, that cool girl that wants all of those younger brands, but still it works alongside the other brands that we do. So I think it's just making sure that the business is evolving with the customer. I think definitely there's an element of our customer that she's willing to invest in more long-term pieces. So there is that element of that more elevated price point. And I think that's a nice area of the business, because we know that our lady will spend more on great quality product, but equally we've got those entry price point brands, so we still keep that kind of that brand edit very affordable to aspirational. So you've got all elements. You've got your entry price point, you've got your middle, and you've got your exit price point, which is great as well.
You you were a victim of cybercrime last year.
Yes.
What happened?
Oh gosh, it was horrendous. It still is horrendous, really, the results of it. Basically, one day, online trade just dropped off the edge of a cliff. We were trading very well. Obviously, the online business grew. We've had a strong online business since 2008 that I've been building slowly but surely, and building all of those keywords, all of the stuff behind the scenes. We had a very solid online business. COVID came, it got even stronger. And then we were in a very good place with online. Then all of a sudden, it dropped off the edge of a cliff, and it was like, what on earth has happened? Literally taking, a tenth of what we were taking. Scary times. You have 1 week like that, and you think, okay, maybe this is just a blip. You look at your traffic, you look at all of those things, and you don't really understand what is happening.
And what would as a percentage of your total turnover, what would be your online turnover?
At
Like
the time, our online turnover was 40% of our overall turnover, and it just dropped hugely. So then at the worst level, it kind of dropped to 20 to 25%, and we're now building that back up on between 30 to 35% now of the overall turnover. So it dropped off the edge of a cliff. The site was blocked by Google, so we were getting all of these messages from people who couldn't access the site. I think the first one was actually from my mum, who said, there's something wrong with your website, I can't get on there. And then we were getting all of these messages, and you went onto the site and you couldn't access the website. We had extensive investigations. A lot of the time I was being told, there's nothing wrong, it was just a blip. There was, my gut, I absolutely knew there was something wrong. You know your business, you know it inside out, and you know that this is not just a blip. Trade was not there like it was. And with, I know retail, I know everything I do with that inside out, but online is a slightly different language, and I think you need to trust the people that you're talking to, the experts in this. Eventually, after extensive investigations, we did a full security audit. We found out that the business had been maliciously targeted by someone. I don't know. I don't think I'll ever know who. Apparently, a lot of money had been spent on this targeting. 80 million malicious links were put onto the website to try and basically close the online side of things down. And it sounds crazy, but it is proven. I've spoken to many experts, and that is what happened. And our Google authority, our domain authority, at when we were, at our heyday, was just under 50, which 49 to 50, which is really high for an independent retailer. So it meant that we were listing on the first page for all of our brands for a lot of search terms. And it dropped to 27. So we were on the bottom of any search history. It was everything we'd done over 14 years online was just wiped. And it's heartbreaking, and it was very, very, very stressful, as you can imagine.
Yeah. And how long that period of time to getting it back up? And I know that you said you're still working through it, but how long was that over? Like, what kind of period of time was that?
I would say it was when we looked at all of the analytics eventually, when we got that site security back fully, it actually was over 18 months that you could see that these links had kind of
We're
started
chipping
building.
away.
I would say yeah, exactly. When it finally came to a head, when the trade just dropped off and the site was basically blocked, I would say from that to finding out what had happened was around about 6 months. It took a very long time to get people to really listen to what I was saying. Last January 2024 was when I got the final site audit back and I realised actually what had happened. During that time, obviously, it was a very stressful time for the business because I was buying obviously at a certain level
Yeah,
to kind of meet those demands. And then all of a sudden that demand isn't there and you're
the tap's
overstocked.
turned off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And you know, the business that I'm in with, which is a multi-brand retailer, I'm buying from third-party brands 6 months in advance, so it's quite a big juggernaut to kind of turn around, and you can't do that overnight. So, kind of getting the business kind of right-sized in terms of stock took a while, and that has various different impacts. So it was, yeah, it was a very scary time for the business.
And no ransom, no.
No, nothing. Literally just let's just close the business down.
Yeah,
Well,
let's
they
just
didn't.
let's
Yeah,
just completely fuck with someone's business.
actually, basically, yeah.
Oh my God. Well, I'm so glad that that is, that you are, you're over that. And in terms of customers and how do you stay, there's a lot of talk about um, customers wanting more connection, and how do you stay connected with your customers and keep them coming back?
Lots of different things. I mean, I'm so passionate about what I do. I absolutely live and breathe what I do. So I think I'm always looking for the next big thing. So I think that's important that the customer knows there's always something new coming through. There's new brands, there's new product. It's making sure everything's staying relevant. Social media is a big driver for my business. It's a huge part of what we do. So I think kind of, regular, like I do styling reels 3 times a week, which is very labor intensive, I
Yeah,
must say,
yeah.
especially during the buying season, but they do work. They convert very well. Our customer loves to see that element of the business. So I think definitely that drives things. We have new product every week. We have 3 email campaigns a week as well. And the team, just that basic, old school, in contact with your regular customers as well. They're constantly letting people know what's coming in. So I think it's just about making sure all of those boxes are ticked. And we notice if one of those boxes isn't ticked, like if we miss a reel or whatever in a week, you do notice it in the turnover.
You see the drop off, and
Yeah.
there's a lot more, I suppose, more pressure from online than you would feel in your location. How are
Yeah.
you making yourself stand out online then?
I think I really focus on what I do. I stay in my lane in the sense that I don't worry about what others are doing. I'm aware of competition. I'm aware of what other people are doing, but I very much focus on what I do and what I do well. So I think we offer quite a unique service at the dressing room. It is very tailored to our customer. I have a wide edit of product, so I do really focus on that affordable to aspirational. So there's a mixture of both.
Yeah.
And I think the styling service that we offer, that extra attention to detail and always going that extra mile, do make us stand out from the competition as well. So I think with a much smaller version of some of the big players online, but we just do it with personality, I suppose.
Yeah. I've seen a real drop in customer service in retail. I've worked on the shop floor, I've worked in retail, and I actually find it quite heartbreaking now when I go out and to try and shop in shops and the
Mm.
lack of customer service that's out there. Why do you think that is?
I think I almost liken this to being like it's 2 separate industries now. Like if I go in sometimes to buy something for my son, if I've forgotten to get something for his school day the following day, so I have to run into somewhere like H&M and get something like super quickly. you've got the self-service tills, you've got every reason not to communicate with a human being. And I think it's miles apart from what we do as independents, where it's all about service. The reason we're there and we're thriving and we're doing well is because of service and human connection. And I think bigger retailers have missed that. You can listen to people like, I suppose, John Lewis and people that are saying, oh, we want to get back that service culture. But why did you ever lose it?
Yeah.
I think it's about cost saving, isn't it? It's about
Yeah.
convenience. It's almost like bringing the Amazon of life to the shop floor. And I just think that's not what people want.
I think there's a real tipping point, isn't there, as well? Because, and I remember when I used to be a buyer for companies like Primark, Marks and Spencer's, and, you could see that where they were cutting staff on the shop floor.
Yeah.
And then when is that point, that then they're cutting staff on the shop floor
Yeah,
to save costs, but then they're not making the sales because they've cut the staff on the shop floor. And it's that real balance,
completely.
isn't it? But
I'll look around my store, and I've got more staff in my store than there would be in a huge, high street retailer, I would say.
and speaking of staff and team, so you have about 20 amazing
Yes.
people working with you.
Yeah,
And when you're making those hires, assess that they're the right fit for you. What's important for you with that?
It's tricky, isn't it? Hiring is tricky. I think I have got a wonderful team. I think particularly at the moment, they are great. I'm lucky to say that I've got people that have been with me long term. One of my team has been with me for 19 years this year. A couple have been with me for sort of 10 years. And then we've got, a new sort of cohort that are 5, 2, and, 6 months maybe, but they're all the right fit for the team. And I think it's really tricky, and it's difficult to find the right people. It takes time. Sometimes you can be super lucky and the right person will come along. But it does just take time. And I think it's just, I know it sounds silly, but it is about kind of that gut feeling and that connection that you get with somebody. Obviously, all the boxes have got to be ticked because, as we notoriously know, we'll often advertise for a position that always says weekends, and then people say, but I can work Wednesday afternoons, and you're like, no, we need you there at the weekends. Oh, I can't possibly do weekends. And you're like, you will not, for everybody, you will not turn into a pumpkin if you work at the weekend. It is fine, and it's good fun, and it's a busy time. So
When you're hiring, are you thinking of, right, I've got to, or the team that I have can do X, Y, Z, but I'm missing someone that can do this? Do you hire for your gaps, or is there a certain question that you ask to assess that fit?
I think obviously sometimes you have to hire for the gap. So I think if you're looking for a specific area within the business, be that sort of to fill an e-commerce role, or a super stylist on the shop floor, you're looking for a different person for that, I think. But often it does come down to the person, and I wouldn't say there's a specific question. I wish there was, but no, I probably wouldn't say there is. Maybe, yeah. Yeah, no, I wouldn't say there is a specific question, unfortunately.
And in terms of buying for the season, how do you approach that? I mean, you've obviously been doing it a long time. I've been watching your stories, and during buying season, you are everywhere. I don't know how you've managed to. Do you have like a couple of Deryanes in different countries in different parts of London at the time? You're just like boom, boom, boom. You're just like
Thank you
manic.
for noticing. Yes, it is. It was interesting.
It's a month after the first buying video. I'm like, she's still going. Um, how do you how do you approach that? Because it's a lot, like you say, you've got a big square footage that you have to buy for, and the online business. There's a lot for you to consider. How do you get your head straight in terms of how you approach buying and what you're looking for?
I start the season with a very detailed budget plan. So I will look at what's sold through well, what brands have done particularly well, what categories have done well. I'll look at sell-throughs. I'll analyse anything that hasn't performed well and see if there was particular reason for that? So is it something that's worth revisiting, or is it something that potentially just isn't working for my customer? I'll also discuss that with my team, like, why did this not work? Did you feel there were any gaps in what you could offer people this season? So I'll always have those open discussions as well. So I set out all the numbers, and then I have to plot out seeing all of those brands, which is quite a task in itself. Then really, as much as I'll have those numbers there as a guide, I will, if I see a really strong collection and I had a smaller budget for it, I'll push that up. If I had a strong budget for something and it's a weaker collection, equally I'll dial that back as well. So it really is about kind of looking at the product individually and seeing what is going to work. I'll always kind of know where my gaps are. So I will look specifically for those to fill those gaps. But I think if you're just adding something to tick a box, it's not going to work. I think you have to have that passion behind it. You have to be excited. You have to know that when that product turns up in store, that, you know, you're going to be like, oh, that's amazing. So I think there's a lot of elements at play, and I think it ultimately really knowing who your end customer is going to be the key to all of it.
And what new ways what new ways are you driving sales?
I think since the online attack last year, we've been working with a new agency to kind of drive our meta ads. We weren't really doing those before, so we've had to put budget into that. We've changed how we run our Google ads as well. Then the other side of it is really just looking at different things we can do with social media and various things like that. But ultimately kind of the core business, I suppose, stays the same, but we just make sure we're always kind of ticking all of those boxes.
Yeah. And like I say, doing more of what works and less of what.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
What challenges or changes have you had to adapt to recently? Cybercrime's over, done, ticked it off.
Yeah.
What have you
Yeah.
found anything that's been particular testing recently?
I would say the biggest challenge now for my business and for similar businesses, I would imagine, would be discounting. And so I think kind of the whole Black Friday culture is a real problem. It's a kind of, you know, the autumn winter season used to be our biggest trading season. It's not anymore. It's a very short window now. I think November's almost, unless you participate in the Black Friday discounting, which if you do, you're going to have amazing turnover, but probably not great profit. So I don't like to participate in that. And November's almost like that lost month now. It used to be a really strong trading month, and now it is tricky. You've kind of got August, everyone's on holiday. So out in my line of work, the autumn deliveries start turning up in July when it's boiling hot. Everyone's on holiday in August. And September, October, if you have recently we've had quite warm September, Octobers, which have been absolutely beautiful, but not great for trade. Last September, October was slightly milder, slightly cooler, so that was good for trade. But then you come across November, which is all about discount culture. And then in December, for me, it's, you know, that gifting time is great, but it's not where my ladies are spending, you know, all of their cash. Really, it's more, you know, they've bought their things for themselves. Now it's time to focus on other people. So it's quite a short season, I would say. And I think the discounting side of things is the biggest challenge that I'm facing recently.
And how are you, because obviously there's the profitability that you need to manage within the business. What are the things that you're doing to try and then combat that you're not, you know, there's obviously the competition will be on sale, shop. Are there other things that you're doing then to try and offset that?
Definitely. I focus very much on the retail experience. So I'll give you a reason to come into the store during that time. So we'll have activations, events, we'll work with our brands. You know, in November last year, we did an ear piercing event. So people were buying into, you know, we had a lovely sort of Copenhagen earring brand called Lulu Copenhagen. So if you were buying that, you could get your ears pierced. We had scarf tying events with a new Scandi brand that we were working with. We do lots and lots of different activations throughout November that make it more about that retail experience. And I think it has to be about that. Otherwise, you know, you need to make it a reason that it's fun for people to come in, and it's, you know, they have a great time when they come into store, and it's memorable. And I think if you do that, then you can offset it somehow.
What do you want to stop, start, and continue doing this year?
This is tricky. I think stop getting stressed out during the buying season. That probably is my biggest challenge, as my team will tell you. I do find it quite a very intense time, and sometimes I struggle with that. It's a bit overwhelming because I need to manage my stress levels more. So I think I would like to start, I suppose, managing some of my time slightly better, to enable me to focus on developing new areas of the business, to be able to look at more bigger picture stuff, more for the future. And I think to continue just really evolving, delivering a great retail experience, and just delivering that fantastic retail experience that I would want to be part of if I was one of my customers.
And for those people that are thinking of starting their own bricks and mortar e-commerce business with
Yeah.
multi-brands, what advice would you give?
I would say know that it's going to be hard work. I think firmly believe in the power of hard work, because that is it's going to get you a long way. And I think really know who your customer is. So get to know who you want your end consumer to be, understand her or him, and really kind of get to grips with what their lifestyle is, so that you're providing something that's really going to work for them and that they're going to enjoy being a customer of.
Deryane, thank you so much. Where can people find you and find the dressing room?
Our website address is the-dressingroom.com, and you can find us on the Dressing Room Social on Instagram, and I am at Deryane Tad on Instagram.
Thank you so much. And all of that will be in the show notes, so you can go and check them out. And I'll be back again next week with another great guest.
Lovely, thank you.